Hello and Grüß Gott. Today I'm going to show you how to adjust the rear wheel drive chain on a 2011 BMW F650GS 800cc version. So some of the items you're going to need to do this job: you're going to want some metric wrenches. It's 13 millimeters for the adjustment nuts. You're going to need a ruler that measures both in English and metric. I'm going to use some PJ1 Chain Lube. This is my favorite, works out really well. You might want some isopropyl alcohol to clean the chain with. You definitely don't want to clean it with WD-40 or any other kinds of solvents except for kerosene. Kerosene is actually the ideal thing to clean it with. You're going to need some paper towels. You're going to need some sockets. It's a 24 millimeter nut down there on the axle, but the best one to use is a 15/16 socket. It fits better. And also you're going to need maybe a rubber mallet, some Loc-Tite, some rubber gloves, some tape to mark the chain with, and a cleaning cloth to clean the chain with. So I just washed my motorcycle a few minutes ago, and I'm going to take it out right now and take it for a quick drive to make sure there's no water in the chain, and then I'm going to show you what to do next. So I'll be right back. Okay, at this point I'm going to wipe the chain down with a wipe and some IPA. So normally I'd like to use kerosene, but it's really hard to find here. So I use IPA. Again, you don't want to saturate your chain with something like WD-40. I've seen some YouTube videos that say to do that. But if you saturate your chain with WD-40, it actually takes the lube out of the O-ring surfaces that are in between the links here. And you don't want to use things like brake fluid. So best thing to do is just do an outside wipe with some IPA 91%, or best of all is kerosene if you have it. So I'm going to wipe down the chain and I'll be right back. Okay, at this point you want to find out where the chain hangs the lowest, and what you want to do is you want to rotate it around and see where it hangs the lowest, and you want to mark that spot. And this is done with the machine on the center stand. If you didn't buy the optional center stand, you're going to have to put it on a swing arm stand to do this. So you're going to do that, and then you're going to mark it, and I'll show you how I did that when I come right back. Okay, this seems to be about my lowest spot here, so I'm going to mark it with a white marking pen, and I'll go back and recheck that. So I want to do that, and then I will be right back. Okay, so I've marked my center spot, and now what I want to do is I want to lubricate the chain. So I'm going to hold a cloth underneath it, and I'm going to lubricate it with some of this PJ1 lube. And I spray it in here very lightly, all inside the rollers on the outside. And I use my mark to tell me when I've gone around the whole circumference. And then after that, we will see if the chain needs to be adjusted. That's done with the machine on its side stand. So you check it for 30 to 40 millimeters of movement right here in the center between the front sprocket and the rear sprocket, and you check how much is there, and if it's more than 40, then you're going to want to tighten it up a little bit. And that's true for the regular F650GS. If you have a lowered version, then it's 20 to 30 millimeters of play, and that's between the top of here, and then when you get up here you want to measure to the bottom. So you measure that distance. You don't measure from center to center according to the manual. All right, so I'll get it lubricated and I'll be right back. Okay, at this point, I have my machine on its side stand. I have this marked low spot about in the center between the main sprocket and the rear sprocket. And what I want to do now is I want to measure the up and down play of the chain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this ruler up here, and I measure about 42 centimeters. So I'm going to put a piece of tape on my ruler here, 42 centimeters, and that'll be the low spot. And then I'll move this up, and I'll put a piece of tape on the high spot, and I'll measure it, and I'll look at the distance between the two and see if it's between 30 and 40 millimeters. So I'm going to do that and I'll be right back. Okay, when I measure right in the center of the chain, the high and low spot, I come out to about 28 millimeters. So my chain's just actually a slight bit too tight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen this nut here It's about 15/16 or I believe I said 24 millimeter. 24 millimeter actually fits kind of loose, and 23 millimeter won't go on it. So I'm not sure what size they intended it to be, but really it's actually pretty much like an American size 15/16. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen this slightly, and I'm going to adjust these adjusters in just a tiny bit on both sides. And I'll take a rubber mallet and tap on the back of the tire to make sure it's seated. And then I'll remeasure my chain and see how it looks then. So I'll do that and be right back. Okay, one thing I wanted to note was use a breaker bar, not a torque wrench, to break that large axle nut loose. So I've actually already got it loose. And now I'm using a 13 millimeter. And I loosen this nut here. And I'm actually going to turn these screws in slightly because I want to make the chain slightly looser. So I'm just going to turn them in a little bit, and I'll recheck my work and I'll be right back. Okay, at this point I've loosened up my chain a slight bit, and I'm getting ready to re-snug these up, and I've put 1 drop of Loc-Tite there so that this won't come loose, this adjuster, once I have it completed. So what I've done is I measured, and I have about 30 to maybe 32 millimeters of play in my chain at the center point over here. So what I've already done is I've already tightened the axle nut to 100 Newton meters. That's the BMW spec. No Loc-Tite or anything, just 100 Newton meters of torque. And then after I get done doing that, I go back and actually snug this up against here. And I also wanted to mention that I used a wooden dowel and a rubber mallet against here to make sure those were seated all the way up. And another thing is there's some marks in here. You want to make sure they're equal on both sides. So on both of these right now, I'm just slightly behind the third mark going this way towards the back of the bike. And so again, I've snugged this up to 100 Newton meters. And now I'm going to, I snug this adjuster up against here, just barely pushing against it. And now I'll go ahead and snug this up. There's a BMW spec, but to do it you have to use a crow's foot wrench and a special side adjustment torque instrument, and I don't want to do that. Most people don't have that. So I'm just going to hand snug this up. So really that's about all there is to it. You want to always check your work after you've got done tightening everything up. You want to make sure these are at the same spot on both sides, the adjusters. You want to make sure everything is snugged up and correct and held into place, and then you want to check your chain to make sure it's got the right play in it, and that's about all there is to it. So thanks for watching. Servus.